the forgotten outpost. New Carthage was not a jewel of the stars. It was dust, stone, rusting metal clinging stubbornly to the edge of the galaxy. When humanity first spread to the stars, the planet had been an ambitious beacon, a colony meant to bridge the core worlds with the farthest frontiers. Great ships once ferried settlers and cargo to its orbiting docks, filling its cities with the roar of industry and the laughter of families building new lives. That was 2 centuries ago. Now, New Carthage was little more than a rumor among traders, a ghost on the star charts. When the Terran Union shifted its priorities, when wars at home drained resources, the colony was cut loose. Supply ships stopped coming. The Union Navy pulled its patrols. Slowly, communications faded. The galaxy moved on. But New Carthage didn't die. Its people endured on grit, stubbornness, and ingenuity. They built railguns from mining rigs, repurposed farming tractors into armored haulers, and kept their technology alive with scavenged parts and improvised genius. Their lives were hard, but they were theirs. A colony abandoned was a colony unshackled, and the children of New Carthage grew up with iron in their veins. Still they were small. Barely 3 million people scattered across weather-beaten settlements. No fleet, no navy, no allies. The core had forgotten them, and in turn, they had learned to live without the core. And then the sky burned. The Drexians arrived without warning, an armada that blotted out the stars. The alien warships were colossal, shimmering with living metal that writhed like muscle and bone. Their energy signatures pulsed with the power of suns. Entire fleets hung in orbit like a predator's jaws closing around prey. For most civilizations, the sight of a Drexian fleet meant surrender or extinction. They were conquerors who did not parley. Every recorded encounter in galactic history had ended in the same way: bombardment, slaughter, assimilation. The Drexians did not fear resistance. Why would they? Their commander broadcast a single message across every channel, his voice translated into flat, cold English. Humans of this world, you are beneath the Drexian Empire. Submit and be erased peacefully, or resist and be erased in agony. In the streets of the capital, Havenfall, people stood frozen as the voice thundered from every screen, every comm, every device. Children pressed against their mothers. Farmers tightened their grip on tools suddenly useless against starships. Old veterans muttered prayers, some in languages long forgotten by the core. The governor's council gathered deep within the command bunker. Faces were pale, drawn with fear. To resist was suicide. To surrender was annihilation. The choice, it seemed, was meaningless. But then came a voice, gravelly, old, worn with scars of war. Commander Elias Rourke. One of the last surviving veterans of the Terran Union Navy. Left behind when the Union pulled out. Forgotten, just like New Carthage itself. They think we're weak, Rourke growled, glaring at the holographic projection of the Drexian fleet. They think we'll roll over like every other race they've steamrolled. The councilwoman beside him shook her head. We don't have a fleet, Elias. We don't even have proper weapons. Look at them, gods in metal. Rourke's lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. Then we remind them that humans don't need gods. We make do with what we have. And what we have, he leaned forward, tapping the holomap to highlight an orbital mining rig, a forgotten structure drifting half-dead above the planet, is just enough to piss them off. The council stared in silence. Fire it, Rourke said simply. Let's show them what New Carthage does to uninvited guests. And so, against all logic, against every lesson history had taught about facing the Drexian Armada, the last human colony on the edge of the galaxy chose defiance. High above the planet, in the shadows of the invading fleet, an ancient railgun thrummed to life for the first time in 50 years. Its capacitors howled. Sparks danced across rusted coils. And then it fired. A single tungsten slug screamed through the void, tearing into the nearest Drexian frigate. The alien ship shuddered, split open, and blossomed into fire. Down on the planet, silence held for one long heartbeat. Then the people of New Carthage roared. Farmers, miners, children, elders, their voices shaking the bunkers and streets. The Drexians had come expecting prey. What they found instead was humanity at its rawest, cornered, desperate, and utterly unwilling to die quietly. The forgotten colony had spoken, and the galaxy was about to remember New Carthage. The first sparks of defiance. The Drexian fleet did not retreat. It recoiled. On their command vessel, a living fortress the size of a small moon, the Drexian overcommander seethed. To the Drexian mind, resistance was not merely foolish, it was an insult. Their empire had crushed dozens of civilizations with overwhelming force. They were predators without equals. And yet, a colony of abandoned humans, a species they had barely considered worthy of study, had just destroyed one of their frigates with what appeared to be scrap metal and forgotten machines. The overcommander's voice rumbled across the alien fleet. Eradicate them. Reduce their world to ash. Above New Carthage, the skies turned white. Energy beams lanced downward, hammering against the colony's shields, crude but effective barriers built from re-engineered mining reactors. Entire districts shuddered as buildings crumbled and the ground shook. Civilians huddled in underground shelters, listening to the thunder of war. But humanity had something the Drexians had never faced before. They were underestimated. In Havenfall's command bunker, Commander Elias Rourke slammed his fist on the table as reports streamed in. Shields are holding for now, his aide barked, but they won't last against sustained fire. We need a counterstrike. Rourke's gaze swept over the map of the planet and its orbit. We can't match their firepower. So we hit them where it hurts, fast, dirty, unexpected. Like wolves taking chunks out of a lion. He turned to the group of militia captains and civilian engineers standing nearby. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense, most had never seen war. Farmers. Mechanics. Miners. But their eyes burned with something he hadn't seen in years, resolve. Can you retrofit the mining rigs? Rourke asked. A young engineer named Kira Chin, grease smudged across her cheek, nodded fiercely. We can mount magnetic accelerators on the haulers. Crude, but they'll punch holes if we get close. Good, Rourke said. Because that's exactly what we're going to do. We take the fight to them. The first human counterattack came not from sleek warships, but from repurposed civilian craft. Cargo haulers, patched freighters, even atmospheric shuttles, retrofitted with jury-rigged weapons. They rose from the planet's surface in ragged squadrons, their hulls dented and scarred. To the Drexians it must have looked laughable. But the laughter ended quickly. One squadron dove straight into a formation of Drexian destroyers. The lead hauler, a lumbering or transport called the Ironheart, suddenly ejected its cargo bay. The massive container, filled with compressed mining explosives, detonated with the force of a small nuke. 2 Drexian ships vanished in a sphere of fire. Elsewhere, human militia fighters used asteroids and orbital debris as cover, slingshotting around them to launch tungsten slugs into the alien fleet's flanks. They moved unpredictably without the rigid doctrine of professional navies, and that made them dangerous. The Drexians had studied order. They had not studied chaos. On the ground, resistance erupted as well. Civilians armed with homemade rail rifles and EMP grenades turned their streets into killing zones for any Drexian landing parties. Farmers used modified irrigation drones to ambush patrols. Entire families fought side by side, defying the alien invaders at every turn. In one village, a group of children lured a Drexian walker into a canyon where waiting demolition crews collapsed the walls on top of it. The cheers that followed echoed through the hills. Every act of defiance, no matter how small, carried the same message: we will not kneel. Back aboard the Drexian flagship, the overcommander paced. His attendants trembled, not from fear of the humans, but from fear of him. These primitives, he snarled, do not understand the futility of resistance. An officer hesitated before speaking. Overcommander, they fight as if they have nothing to lose. The overcommander's crimson eyes narrowed. Then we shall give them something to lose. Prepare the planetary razors. If they will not surrender their colony, we will carve their world apart. Down in the bunker, Rourke listened to intercepted transmissions. His expression hardened. They're not going to stop, he said quietly. They're preparing to burn the planet itself. The council fell silent. The weight of those words pressed on everyone present. But Rourke was already moving, already planning. He leaned over the table, jabbing at the orbital map. They think this colony is just another backwater world. They think they can crush us with brute force. But if we can strike their command ship, his voice dropped to a growl. We cut the head off the beast. Kirichin frowned. You want to attack their flagship? With what? Half-broken haulers and a mining rig. Rourke's eyes gleamed with the kind of madness only humans seem to wield. Yes, he said. And if we do it right, it'll be enough. That night, across New Carthage, the word spread like fire. Farmers, miners, engineers, children, all whispering the same impossible truth. The Drexian Armada was not invincible. For the first time in the galaxy's long memory, an alien empire had been bloodied by humans. And now, the last colony of Earth's forgotten children prepared to strike at the very heart of the conquerors. The war for New Carthage had only just begun. The turning point. After 3 weeks of brutal siege, the Drexians deployed their ultimate weapon, the Armada's flagship, the Scourge of Worlds. A warship the size of a small moon, it had wiped out entire civilizations in days. The colony's leaders gathered in the underground command chamber. Supplies were nearly gone, weapons running dry. By every logical measure, they should have surrendered. But logic had no place in the human spirit. Instead, they crafted a plan that no alien mind would ever consider. They would hijack the Scourge itself. A strike team of miners, hackers, and ex-soldiers launched aboard stolen shuttles, cloaked in the heat signatures of destroyed wreckage. They infiltrated the Scourge through maintenance shafts, crawling through alien machinery alive with pulsating biometal. What the Drexians considered untouchable, sacred, humans treated as a puzzle to break apart. Within hours, the Scourge's internal systems were compromised. The humans unleashed chaos. Hacked weapon arrays fired on Drexian ships, hangar bays vented into space, command nodes went dark. Suddenly, the Armada's greatest ship had become a weapon against itself. From below, the colony's railguns and fighter crafts surged, taking advantage of the chaos. The once invincible Armada fractured, Drexian ships colliding, fleeing, or burning in the legend forged. When dawn finally rose over New Carthage, the skies were littered with burning wreckage. The Drexian Armada, the same force that had crushed a dozen civilizations, was broken. At the heart of the battlefield floated the Scourge of Worlds, now under human control, its alien banners replaced with a makeshift flag, the old Earth tricolor, tattered but proud. Word spread faster than light across the galaxy. The forgotten human colony, abandoned and underestimated, had done the impossible. They had not only survived, they had conquered the galaxy's deadliest fleet. For the Drexians, it was the first defeat in their history. For humanity, it was proof of something greater. Even when forgotten, even when abandoned, even when hopelessly outmatched, humans would fight. And more often than not, they would win. The galaxy began to whisper a new name. New Carthage, the colony that conquered an armada. And with it, a legend was born. Orbit.